Alrighty, I wanted to come out here and give you guys my thoughts and opinions on a topic of discussion that I am seeing all over the community. I am hearing, I am watching, I am seeing people freak out about the Six Flags and Cedar Fair merger. And it's quite funny, to be honest, and not funny in like I'm laughing at people for their opinions, because justifiably a lot of people are concerned about some things they are seeing right now. Six Flags does appear to the naked eye to look like they're in full panic mode. They're selling off parks, that they're in financial crisis, and so on. And I'm actually here to try and calm everyone down, because what you're seeing is a very normal process in a merger that has just taken place. So what you guys have just seen is essentially one of the largest theme park corporations taking form. Six Flags and Cedar Fair have merged. They own a lot more parks than they owned before the merger. They have a very confusing lineup of theme parks. Some are already really well developed, heading down a great path, and some have been underdeveloped with the wrong attractions. Now, what you're going to start to see when you have this thing called a massive merger is you're going to start to notice a lot of the pros and cons. There are a lot of pros and there are a lot of cons, but at the beginning of such a major merger, you're going to be noticing a lot of the cons due to what's called resizing and restructuring. So unfortunately, the process you're going through right now is almost like growing pains. So what you're noticing with all this negativity online about, what the parks and the chain looks like is those growing pains. So as a community, it really sucks when you see these parks that we've loved, as, a lot of the Six Flags fans have loved Six Flags and how they've operated. And a lot of us Cedar Fair fans loved how our Cedar Fair parks operated under Cedar Fair. And now what you're noticing is both communities are almost coming together in agreement with the struggles that we're noticing, the growing pains that we're noticing under this new Six Flags chain. But it's quite normal, and I hope this video does help. I'm going to go in and explain my thoughts and opinions, but please understand this is an opinionated video. It's not me stating this is exactly what's going to happen. I'm just going to give you my opinions, and hopefully it can provide some calm to some of us out there. But right now, the chain has a ton of parks, and if I wanted to give you guys almost like a metaphor of what's going on, picture Six Flags as a chain hanging off a cliff. Okay, we slipped and we fell off a cliff. The chain is hanging and dangling with one hand, and you're on like a rope climber's rope, and on that rope you have all the parks. So Six Flags is off holding itself up, and they're strong enough to bring themselves up above this cliff, but we have a lot of dead weight dangling below us. Okay, so in order to save a lot of the parks, about 90% of the chain, you do have to cut off some dead weight. And that is essentially what you guys are noticing in terms of a lot of avenue, in terms of like what's going on with the chain right now. You're seeing layoffs, you're seeing parks being sold. And, Six Flags is being pretty transparent about what they're doing. They're saying they're not going to be too many parks left to sell. I disagree. I think we'll see about 3 more parks sold in the next 3 to 5 years. It's going to be a continuous process, and you're going to see a lot of roller coasters and flat rides close as well as some restaurants. This is them streamlining their bottom line. They have a large amount of debt as a new chain now, and they the micro or macro factors in terms of what they can control is labor being one of them. So labor is one of the most controllable forms of expenses and debt that a company takes on. So they can control that. So that's going to be what you're noticing the most. You're seeing labor cuts. You're seeing good talent being laid off, unfortunately. And you're going to see restaurants and roller coasters and theme parks closed and sold off. And that's to control the controllable expenses in a business. And it's going to get worse. I think 2026 is actually going to be worse than 2025. I think a lot of you are not going to like how the parks are operating in 2026. But don't worry. I'm going to explain why you shouldn't panic and why, let's be a little more forgiving because good things are on the horizon. But in order to save, most of the 90% of the parks I was talking about, we have to cut some of those littler parks that have no growth potential off and cut them loose. And that is what Six Flags is going to do. And unfortunately, not everyone's going to be in favor of that, but that's just how businesses operate, and that's just how businesses survive. Layoffs is a form of restructuring and regrouping, as well as cutting areas that were bloated before and putting talent into stronger roles. So what a lot of you guys might start to see and notice is someone at your park who was a really standout employee might now be managing 6 to 11 parks. So, for example, Grace Peacock at Canada's Wonderland was the director of communications for Canada's Wonderland, but now she's the director of communications for a ton of parks in the Six Flags chain. And every park has someone at their park, or at least most, that are now managing various parks in the chain. And that is a form of restructuring and regrouping and controlling costs, as well as putting the right talent into the right roles. So it's great for a lot of really strong talent at these parks to be stepping into way more important roles that have a lot larger of an impact while also controlling the labor costs at these parks. So again, I would say that's a con/pro because there is a lot of pro to that. But the next major thing that you're going to notice is finding the perfect and right parks to invest in. Over the years, you guys have heard me talk about this on this channel. So many coaster enthusiasts are like, well, how come Valley Fair isn't getting that $30 million roller coaster? Well, Valley Fair is never going to get that $30 million roller coaster. Dorney Park is never going to get that $30 million roller coaster. There is a specific grouping of parks that Cedar Fair and now Six Flags group their parks into in terms of ROI. And parks like Canada's Wonderland, Kings Island, Carowinds, those are the parks that you're going to see those major investments in. Obviously, Cedar Point. There's a whole new group of parks, though, that I really want to talk about. And these parks are actually going to see a lot more investments than you saw kind of like the Cedar Fair legacy parks receiving in terms of investments. I'm actually really excited for some of these Six Flags parks that I have on my list, because these parks that I guess I'll list now, I was going to save it for a later on conversation, but I'll talk about it now, is that finding the right parks to invest in. So that's going to take a lot of time and planning. It's going to take some trial and error. We've seen that at Canada's Wonderland in terms of trial and error. Look at Wonder Mountain's Guardian. But, eventually you start to get things right. Look at Alpenfury. Yes, the capacity could be better, but there's greater, better things on the horizon coming to Canada's Wonderland as well. And I'm sure capacity will be one of them. But these American parks, these Six Flags parks that I'm really excited for, that are going to have a really exciting future under this chain, is Great Adventure is one of them. Magic Mountain is another one. The Texas parks are going to be heavily invested in. And then obviously your Carowinds, Canada's Wonderland, Kings Island, Cedar Point, and Knott's Berry Farm. But Magic Mountain and Great Adventure and the Texas parks, you're going to want to keep your eyes on those Six Flags parks, because Cedar Fair, or now Six Flags, is going to be looking to develop a lot more of the portfolio. They're going from 5 legacy parks to being able to develop some of these parks on the Six Flags side of things into these legacy parks as well. They've talked on the stockholders call about developing Magic Mountain kind of into that roller coaster capital to almost bring attendance levels up that you see at Knott's Berry Farm over to Magic Mountain as well. So that's why I talk about Magic Mountain, as in there's a very aggressive goal to really drive Magic Mountain sales and attendance up. And whenever a park or a chain is that driven or has that high of a goal, you're going to see the investments to match that, because you can't just say you want something and not spend the money. In business, there's this thing called you got to spend money to make money, and you're going to see that at those parks. So keep an eye out for Great Adventure, Magic Mountain, and the Texas parks, because these are some warm climate parks, as well as Great Adventure being located in truly one of the most best locations you could possibly think of in terms of future growth and drawing in from large metropolitan areas. One of the major cons that you're going to notice, and that I've noticed at Canada's Wonderland, unfortunately, but I keep reminding myself that this is a great thing for park goers in the future. And I'm going to talk about it because when I say 2025 and then 2026 especially are going to suck for us theme park fans, I mean it. You're about to experience some of the largest growing pains you could possibly experience as a theme park fan at a Six Flags park, because what you are noticing is these pass sales. It's no joke that it's no hidden whatever that the pass sales that they've dropped are some of the cheapest we've seen since before COVID. These are some of the cheapest passes you could possibly imagine, especially the Prestige Pass. And the consequences are, at least at Canada's Wonderland, I can't speak for all parks right now, and we won't know until Q3 results about the results of that pass sales, because tomorrow, or today, whenever you're watching this video, the Q2 results are going to drop, and they're going to be a little disappointing. But there's a reason the pass sales went on sale. And there's a saying that Cedar Fair, now Six Flags, has said in a lot of their stockholders' calls is they are recession-proof. And what you're noticing them do is exactly that statement they've made on those calls. They are recession-proof. They control pricing in the market. And now, especially as a conglomerate like they are, the Six Flags brand with all the parks that they have, they do control the market and the pricing. And they've dropped these crazy cheap season passes to drive attendance into the park. You now get free parking. You can go to any of their 40 plus parks. The gold pass is still $99, but it comes with free parking and free park to park hopper for their 40 plus. The Prestige Pass was like $150 cheaper than it was the year before. These are crazy savings. A lot of theme park goers, I think it was, don't quote me on this because I wish I should have wrote the number down, but I think the average person could have saved $700 if you bought your pass at Canada's Wonderland. But don't quote me on that. I think I might be wrong. But you're going to see serious overcrowding. The Prestige Lounge is already beyond overcrowded at Canada's Wonderland. It's almost unbearable. The lineups at Canada's Wonderland are almost unbearable. The fast lane lines are significantly longer than they were before this pass sale. And Alpenfury may have a small part to do with that, but it is mostly the pass sales. So you're going to see these parks really crowding people in. And something I've seen online and have heard online is that dropping the price means they're losing money because they dropped the season pass by $150. That means they're now losing money at the sake of getting people into the park. Well, what you're not understanding is they're actually generating a lot more revenue than they previously had. So I'll try to give the best example that I could possibly give. Let's say Canada's Wonderland sold 10,000 Prestige passes at $300. Okay, so that was a bad year. They sold 10,000 Prestige passes. This is an actual number, brother. This is just a made-up number. Well, now they've dropped it to, let's say, $199 instead of $300. So 20,000 people now go and buy that pass. Even though they dropped the pass price, they are generating a controllable revenue that does not have any loss to them and doubling that number. So their revenue is actually increasing by dropping those sales. So they're not losing money by dropping those sales when they're increasing pass sales. And I can tell you, at least at Canada's Wonderland, they have greatly increased pass sales. So this is 100% going to end up being a win for at least Canada's Wonderland and the rest of the chain. And I guarantee come Q3, we're going to see the numbers. So it is going to have a lot of growing pains, but at the end of the day, the overcrowding is to stop the bleeding and hemorrhaging of the bottom line, in quotations, cash on hand. And, late 2026, after kind of a bad start to 2026, because it is going to be overcrowded, you'll start to see improvements. You'll start to see some of these plans that they're working on take fruition. Great Adventure has stalled their 2026 coaster to 2027. And all of this is part of the master plan to make the right decisions and pay off the right debt and cut and control all the costs they can to come out stronger on the other end. And I think we're going to start to see that early 2027, late 2026, you'll start to see a stronger Six Flags, and you'll start to see the right decisions made. But unfortunately, through 2026, we're going to have to put up with more just not too many food options being delivered that we're used to from Cedar Fair. So back to your hamburgers, hot dogs, fries, pizza, as well as your staples at some of the parks like Lazy Bear Lodge, and then your barbecue places across the Cedar Fair chains. And you might see some of those introduced at the Six Flags chains as well. But, there's not going to be any innovation in the year 2026. We'll start to see that in 2027 as they introduce a lot of the Six Flags technology, and a lot of these newer people stepping into roles, start to understand their roles a lot better and get a lot more comfortable. And the company has controlled their bottom line, and they'll be able to flex that cash on hand a lot better with capital investments. So, is Six Flags in danger? Absolutely not. Don't believe everything you read online or hear online. They are a very strong business with a lot of assets, and you are just witnessing the beginning of that take shape. And there are going to be growing pains, but good times are coming, good decisions are coming, and yeah, I couldn't be more excited. If you are, some of those parks I mentioned, like Magic Mountain, Great Adventure, Texas Parks, Carowinds, Canada's Wonderland, Kings Island, Cedar Point, even some of the smaller parks, you're going to see some great investments, and it's going to be really exciting. Just wait. It just happened. Things are happening. People are developing. Things are taking shape, and so on. So, yeah, stay tuned, because I have a lot more to say, especially after tomorrow's stockholders call, or today's, whenever you're watching this video. But thank you so much for watching my video today. Hopefully it provides some sort of calm. I've just been seeing a lot online, and I wanted to give my opinions. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, comment down below, and I'll try and respond to as many as I can. Have a good one, guys. Bye. Oh, and if you happen to be an American or a Canadian that wants to attend a really cool event, Amusement Insiders, myself, is hosting 2 amazing events at Canada's Wonderland. So on September 6th and September 20th, we will be hosting Coasters After Dark at Canada's Wonderland, where it's 1 hour of ERT on Alpenfury from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., then a tour of the maintenance shop, sign shop, Wild Beast Infield, and Haunted House, followed by a park Q&A, and then 2 hours of nighttime ERT on Alpenfury and Leviathan for 2 hours after close from about 8:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. So don't miss out on this awesome event. I'm going to put a 25% off code down below in the comments, pinned comments. So if you want to buy tickets, we're going to introduce a 25% off code to our September 20th date. So if you happen to want to come visit Canada's Wonderland, that might be the perfect day to do so, because you can get your fast lane while the events aren't happening during the day and get your rides in, and then you can get some awesome rides on Leviathan and Alpenfury. On average, people got, at my last event, 2 hours in the morning, between 6 to 12 rides on Alpenfury alone. And if someone got 20 rides on Leviathan in that time period, as well as 4 rides on Alpenfury. So that's crazy. If you want to come, the link's down below. It's a great event. And yeah, hope to see you guys there. 25% off down below in the comments. Bye, guys.